Welcome to episode 38 of FTCE Seminar, a teacher certification podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto. Today, we'll be talking about some mathematical concepts to help you prepare for the FTCE General Knowledge Mathematics subtest. More math? That's right. And today, we're going to dive into the world of ratios and proportions. Aren't proportions and ratios kind of like the same thing? No. Hey, keep listening because we've got some concepts to cover. Okay, let's get started. Concept number 1, ratios, and concept number 2, proportions. Ratios and proportions are cool concepts in mathematics that we can apply to like cooking recipes or for constructing scaled models of buildings. The funny thing is that on the FTCE practice test, you might see a math problem about the height of a building and the length of a shadow casted by a nearby statue. I know, it sounds silly, but more on that later. Ratios. Definition. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities. For example, if we have a bowl containing 3 red apples and 4 green apples, the ratio of red apples to green apples is 3 to 4. But how do we write that mathematically? Ratios often are expressed in colon form, such as 3:4, or in fraction form, which would be 3/4. Explanation. We have 3 red apples for every 4 green apples. I love apples. Okay, wait. Where were we? Yes. Proportions. Proportions. Definition. Now that we understand ratios, we can explain proportions because basically proportions involve 2 ratios that equal each other. What? Okay, get this. If we have 2 bowls with the same ratio of red to green apples, say 3 to 4, then they are in proportion. And we would express this in a fraction form, meaning 3/4 is equal to 3/4, signifying bowl 1 is equal to bowl 2. Why is this important? Let's try an example. Let's apply our knowledge of ratios and proportions to ingredients to a real-world problem like cooking. Let's say you have a recipe that serves 4 people, but you're cooking for 8 people. So you've got to double the recipe, right? Well, how do I do that? You can use proportions to scale up the ingredients. Okay, like this. If the original recipe calls for 2 cups of flour to serve 4 people, that's 2 cups to 4 people. The question we're asking ourselves is how many cups for 8 people? We don't know yet, so we'll let X equal the unknown amount of cups and 8 equal the total amount of people. Therefore, set up a proportion using the fraction form 2/4 equals X over 8. That's 2/4 equals X over 8. Solving for X, you will cross multiply. That looks like this. 4 times X equals 2 times 8. This simplifies to 4x equals 16. Next, solve for our unknown x by dividing both sides by 4. And you're going to get x equals 4. Therefore, you'll need 4 cups of flour to double the recipe. Now, there are a few different ways to set that up, but what we did was keep it equal by having the cups to people equals the cups to people proportion when we're solving for our unknown. I know. Stay with me now. You seem a little unsure. So let's try the example I was talking about earlier with the building and the statue from the FTCE Mathematics Practice Test. The problem states a building 51 feet tall casts a shadow 48 feet long. Simultaneously, a nearby statue casts a shadow of 16 feet. How tall is this statue? What? Where do I even start? Wait. I know. We can set this up using a proportion. So we have a building that is 51 feet tall with a 48-foot shadow. I'm going to go ahead and set up this ratio as 51 to 48 using the fraction form 51/48. Next, I have a statue that is I don't know how tall and a shadow of 16 feet. Well, what do I do with the unknown? Yes, that's right. I assign it as X. Now that I can set up this ratio as x to 16, or in the fraction form, x over 16. Let's set up these two ratios using a proportion to solve the height of the statue. This is going to look like the building height over shadow length equals statue height of x over statue length. The numbers for this are 51 over 48 equals x over 16. 51 over 48 equals x over 16. Solving for x, you will cross multiply. 48 times x equals 51 times 16. This simplifies to 48x equals 816. Next, solve for our unknown x by dividing both sides by 48. And you get, 48, 816. You get x equals 17. Therefore, the height of the statue is 17 feet. Basically, the statue is 17 feet tall. Wow, that's really, really well done. It's not as hard as I thought. Let's review. Remember that a ratio is a comparison of two quantities, and ratios are often expressed in colon form, such as 3:4, or in fraction form, which would be 3 over 4. Next, proportions involve two ratios that are equal to each other. We set up proportions using two equal ratios when we are solving for an unknown quantity, like such as height. Being able to identify and understand when to use a ratio and proportions to solve problems will definitely help you on the FTCE Mathematics subtest. For more practice with math concepts, visit ftceseminar.com to study for the test. The important thing is to start studying, and start studying today so you can pass the teacher certification exam. Well, what are you waiting for? Check us out on YouTube at FTCE Seminar and start studying today. This podcast was recorded at the Pickens Multimedia Studio at the University of West Florida. This podcast is listener supported. Contributions can be made via the listener support link on Spotify, or hey, you can buy me a coffee at ftceseminar.com. This is your host, Mercedes Musto. Join me again on